Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Mallory Schnell here with WHAS 11 News in Louisville, Kentucky. We are tracking some radar activity. You can see it behind me here. Louisville, much of the area is dry, but you might be seeing those dark skies just off to our north in southern Indiana. So we're going to take a deeper dive in on the radar, what you can expect throughout the rest of the evening, and also talk about the big patterns that we're expecting through the rest of the week. We're turning a little bit hotter and drier for the weekend as we kick off the Kentucky State Fair. We'll also take a look at the tropics as well. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with one of our webcams here, taking a live look from our Midway University camera as part of our U of L Health camera network here. This is along Hurstbourne Parkway here in Louisville. The flag, it's just barely whipping in the breeze there. We see a lot of dark cloud cover, and that is all due to here, what you're seeing here. This is our active radar that we do have, especially across southern Indiana. Really, a lot of the storms so far today have been favoring southern Indiana compared to Kentucky, although of course the outlier here would be if you're in Prospect or Anchorage, Oldham County as well, over to LaGrange, seeing some heavy rainfall, obviously with the yellows, oranges, and reds that you're seeing here on the radar. Along with that, a lot of lightning, especially around New Albany, up to Sellersburg, kind of crossing over I-65. And then as we continue to track this storm system, you can see what's called some training. And that's basically where storms try to follow the same area and or storms that just don't move all too much, and that can really increase some flooding risks and flooding threats. So we'll be watching that, especially around Brandenburg, up to Corydon, over to Sellersburg, as we carry on into the rest of the evening here. Now, we do say scattered storms because not everybody is seeing activity out there. In fact, a lot of our Kentucky counties, you all have been staying dry so far today. Seeing a little bit of activity now south of the parkways. There's been more showers and storms around Beaver Dam today. Not much of that wanting to make its way into our particular viewing area around Litchfield, but we'll watch and see if this complex of storms that's now bubbling up to the southwest continues to hang together as it pushes off to the east and northeast. And of course, we don't want any kind of severe storms. We have seen a couple that have been strong, nothing severe in our particular viewing area, but we have had some storms earlier today. They were around Paoli to English that did have 50 to 55 mile per hour wind gusts. Of course, it does not need to be severe to be impactful. I know the last time we had storms with a lot of lightning, so we had some callers into the news station wondering why there weren't severe thunderstorm warnings on them. But a severe thunderstorm warning is actually issued for wind speeds and or hail, not for lightning. So anytime you just have heavy rainfall and frequent lightning, it can be very impactful, especially if you're out on the roads, but it may not necessarily be severe by definition. Now, your 24-hour estimated rainfall, this shows where a lot of the shower and storm activity has been so far today. As I mentioned, it's kind of been favoring southern Indiana more than our Kentucky counties, farther northward up toward the Indianapolis metro, and obviously if you continue farther northward from there. But we've had some drier pockets on the Kentucky side of the river here through around the parkways, though we are beginning to see more of that activity bubble up this evening. And of course, we have a ton of moisture to tap into, no shortage of that Gulf moisture that's really streaming in here. You can see from our current dew points in the 70s. That is pretty high. And if I zoom out, obviously the numbers get all squished, but you can tell the blues, that tropical moisture through the southeastern states, and then we even have some of that that's been stretching up toward the Great Lakes region. So a lot of moisture to tap into. Of course, we've had the heat as well. Temperatures today have been climbing into the upper 80s and lower 90s, and that's been driving some of our heat indices even higher into the mid to upper 90s and the triple digits. So that's for the areas that haven't seen the rain to cool them off so far. Now, if you are heading out this evening, just a good idea, obviously, to have that rain gear handy. Allow yourself some extra time to get where you need to go, especially if you are in southern Indiana due to these heavy downpours that we're seeing. Hour by hour futurecast keeps this around through about sunset, and then we'll be watching maybe the potential for more scattered activity off to our west to swing through here through the early morning hours before we get some dry time Wednesday morning and then more scattered activity as we head into Wednesday afternoon and evening. So sorry, this is just now starting to catch up the model here, but this would be tomorrow afternoon and evening, pushing a little bit more off to the east and southeast. And obviously the storms tomorrow will be dependent on any kind of storm activity we have tonight. And then once we head into Thursday and beyond, that's when we start to transition into potentially a drier and hotter stretch. Now, in terms of storm threats, we were not included in any kind of severe weather outlook today. You know, we often show the Storm Prediction Center for those threats of strong winds and hail, tornadoes, things like that. This time of year, it's hard for us to get organized severe weather, but one thing that we definitely have in surplus is the moisture. And because of that, heavy rainfall, localized flooding, those are the threats that we're really focused on. That's why we're included here in the excessive rainfall outlook. It's just a level 1 out of 4 in the green. So that's more localized pockets like what we're seeing tonight. Tomorrow we're included in that as well, once again, just because we do have so much moisture. And then once we head into Thursday, that starts to push down to the south of the parkways. And then by Friday and Saturday, high pressure really takes over. So you're just looking at some drier conditions and hotter conditions as well. Rain chances next 5 days, once again, they start to dwindle. So today and tomorrow, our greatest storm chances. I really think today, whoever doesn't get rain today, you do have a chance tomorrow, because I do think it may be in different areas. By Thursday, 30% might be a little too high. I'd say at least 20% for Thursday to areas south. And then by Friday through the weekend, we are trending drier and hotter. In terms of the humidity, of course, that stays elevated with those storm chances around Wednesday, Thursday especially. That keeps us hot, humid. It drives those heat indices as well. We see a brief dip, it looks like Saturday, which would be our driest day. But all in all, staying in the 60s and 70s, so plenty humid for this time of year. And really, you can tell as we continue onward throughout this week, those pinks continue to nudge eastward. So as kind of a broad ridge of high pressure takes over, that's going to keep us hotter and drier through the weekend. And that could send our temperatures into the mid-90s at the very least Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We'll have to watch if that could send things even further into the upper 90s if those trends do hold. So that will be something to watch. If you have any plans this weekend, if you're wanting to head to the Kentucky State Fair, just please be cautious. Make sure you have ways to take breaks, you stay hydrated, you head indoors into some of the AC activities as well, because that heat will really be building by the weekend. So your Kentucky State Fair forecast, of course, that's here in Louisville starting on Thursday. I will be out there for our early evening shows at 4, 5, and 6 p.m. So you might see me out there for WHAS 11. A spotty shower or storm, but really I do think that'll be south of Louisville starting on Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday trending a lot drier but a lot hotter. Low to mid 90s for actual air temperatures. Of course, those feel-like temperatures will be even hotter than that. Your 7-day forecast here, I mean, that's pretty much the big story after our storm chances today and tomorrow will be the heat and humidity really building over time. August tends to be, of course, one of our hottest months of the year on average here in Kentucky, and that's definitely being shown here in our 7-day forecast. So if you're looking for kind of a change in the pattern, maybe toward the end of next week we get some relief, hopefully bigger relief toward the end of the month, but mid-August trending very hot for us. Of course, this time of year it's also the peak of hurricane season, so I do want to touch on Tropical Storm Erin. The tropics are certainly heating up. We're seeing more activity out there, pretty much right on cue. This is off the coast of Africa. The winds haven't picked up since this time yesterday, so still looking at wind speeds 45 miles per hour, just a tropical storm at this point, moving toward the west at 22 miles per hour. But if I put the track on this from the National Hurricane Center, all it has is open water here, and it is expected to strengthen into a hurricane. And then the very end of the cone where you're seeing that 3, that would be by this weekend. So by Saturday into Sunday, it'll be north of Puerto Rico. Category 3 hurricane possible at that point, which is a major hurricane. The good news is the spaghetti models or the weather models that you look at for hurricanes has this really curving out to sea more so than making impact to the mainland U.S. But of course, we still got a ways to go. This will be a storm that we do watch. Once again, this is Erin, so this would be the 5th named storm, believe it or not, in the Atlantic so far this season, but I believe would be the first hurricane. And we still got a ways to go because, as I mentioned, we're starting to get into the peak of hurricane season. That really stretches mid-August through mid-September, and then that starts to decrease in October. But as we've been seeing in the previous or latest years, is that it feels like hurricane season is lasting a little bit longer. Might get a later start, but lasting a little bit longer into October. So we still have a few months left of that. And I always like to say it only takes one storm to really pack a punch and impact an area. But let's get back to why we hopped on here. We're taking that live look outside from our Hughes and Coleman U of L health camera. You can see a nice downpour showing on our camera here. The view is from downtown Louisville, but I'm going to pop myself up just really quickly for anybody who hopped on here a little late. Chief Meteorologist Mallory Schnell here with WHAS 11 News in Louisville, Kentucky, talking about the shower and storm activity that we have here in Kentucky and southern Indiana this evening. Some of these storms really packing a punch with heavy rain, gusty winds, frequent lightning as well. And then we just took that deeper dive look at the extended forecast. A lot of heat, a lot of humidity, more dry weather on the way for the weekend, but not something that you can really get out and enjoy unless you're in the water, because we're going to be dealing with those highs back in the mid-90s. So I know it's been a wet year for us, but because we've had those drier and hotter stretches, yes, we could actually use some rain here before we get into yet another dry and hot stretch. So hopefully you're able to get on some of this rain that we see either today or tomorrow. But before we wrap things up here, I'm going to take another look at the radar, kind of walk you through what we're seeing. We'll take a look at the hour-by-hour forecast, and I will also check the National Weather Service chat. That's a platform that we use to chat with the National Weather Service here in town, see if there's any reports here lately with these storms that we've been tracking across Kentuckiana. So let's take a look at that radar once again. I'm going to pull that up here. Meanwhile, I'm also going to check the chat. We do have a flood advisory for Meade County, Crawford County, Perry County, Harrison, and Breckinridge counties. That's until 8:45 Eastern, 7:45 Central. Just due to rain that we've been seeing so far and more rain to come. So that's what I mentioned in terms of these storms really packing a punch with rainfall. I do think I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see if you all can see what I'm talking about here. But if you look at this particular storm, you'll notice boop, very quickly these little green lines that kind of rush out from it. So those are called outflow boundaries, and they do a couple of things. They can spark additional storms downstream, and they also serve to weaken the parent storm that they came out of. So that's good news in terms of weakening, say, the winds, maybe even some of the lightning. But what we're seeing here is the movement of this storm is almost stationary. I mean, it's not really moving all too much. It's kind of blowing out amongst itself and dumping a lot of rainfall in this certain corridor. So really from Corydon down through portions of Breckinridge County as well. So I'm kind of worried about any kind of flooding issues around New Amsterdam here. We'll see in terms of how much rainfall we picked up and if there is any kind of additional flash flood warning that could be issued for this. So this is 1 hour estimated rainfall. So yeah, that's what we mean when we've seen an inch, maybe an inch and a half with some of these heaviest downpours in a very quick period of time. So as we always say, turn around, don't drown. If you encounter any kind of flooded roadways, just make sure you do not drive through flooded roadways or drive around barricades. They are put up for a reason. Meanwhile, in the Louisville area, we did get a report right over the airport of those winds kind of kicking up. So if you look quickly at, once again, that right there, that little green line, that is an outflow from a storm as well. So some gusty winds possible with that over the airport right now. In terms of getting this radar to fill in over Louisville, I don't know. It's really wanting to hang. I mean, unless we're talking about both Meade and Breckinridge County, obviously down there. It's wanting to hang just north of the river here. Oldham County also getting some heavy rainfall. If you live in Crestwood, Skylight, getting a lot of that heavy rainfall. Or if you're right on, that's Springhurst, just north of the paddock shops there, or east of the paddock shops. Some heavy rainfall moving through Oldham County. Once again, none of these are severe, which is great news. In fact, I haven't even seen any special weather statements, which is the step below a severe thunderstorm warning. I don't believe any additional ones have been issued. There was one issued for this particular storm that's rolling through the Louisville metro for wind gusts of 40 miles per hour. Before that, we did have a few special weather statements that were issued for, say, 50 or 55 miles per hour. Thankfully, we're not seeing that. So at this point, it's a heavy rainfall and lightning threat. So if you're heading out on the roads, especially in southern Indiana, expect some ponding, some loud storms, as well as we still continue to track quite a bit of lightning and heavy rain. Some gusty winds possible with these as well. I'm going to put on velocity. Yeah, you can see where you're still seeing some bright greens there. So some wind gusts within the strongest storms, that outflow currently rolling through Louisville as we speak. We'll see if that sparks additional storms through the metro here. But that's what we're looking at here. I didn't hop on for any kind of major severe weather outbreak or anything like that. But as I mentioned before, it doesn't take a storm to be severe warned for it to really impact you, especially with heavy rain and lightning. If it tends to be a very loud storm, it can certainly grab your attention and not be ideal if you are, you know, on the roads. So let's see if I will pull up the hour-by-hour forecast once again here. So hour by hour, we are tracking those storms, especially through southern Indiana. We'll see if some more scattered activity can kind of form in our Kentucky counties and lift east-northeastward there. Let me pull up the radar, excuse me, just a moment to see if these storms that are off to our west are actually forming. Okay, yes. So this is what model data has eventually moving into our neck of the woods late this evening. So I would be tracking this likely through our night team newscast, which is at 11 p.m. tonight. So we'll see if those hang together and we have more storms overnight. But there's quite a bit of activity on the radar, to be honest. So we have this main cluster here along the river from Irvington, or I would say Brandenburg, Corden, Sellersburg, LaGrange. Then we have additional storms down here in western or south central Kentucky is where these are wanting to head. Around Beaver Dam has picked up quite a bit of rainfall today. Madisonville as well. And then we have more storms off to our west. So we'll see if we do continue to have that activity later on tonight. But let me take you through that hour-by-hour forecast. So heavy downpours, gusty winds, frequent lightning with these storms this evening. Maybe more activity wanting to bubble up. Let me backtrack this just a hair. Bubble up to the south. But general storm direction is been northeast so far. And then these are the storms. This is 10 p.m. tonight. Those are those storms that are currently off to our west. If they hang together, they could get some bonus rain. I love a good overnight rain when you're sleeping. Doesn't really impact anything. But of course, we could use the moisture. That pushes east by sunrise tomorrow. Then we could have some dry time in the morning. We'll see where storms want to develop tomorrow afternoon, but we'll have another isolated to scattered storm chance tomorrow afternoon and evening, wanting to push a little bit farther to the east. And then beyond that, we start to dry out a bit. So Thursday is kind of that transition day where we could still have some radar activity, but it will be less. And I do think it trends a little bit farther south by that point. And then Friday through the weekend will be hot. Really heating up Saturday, Sunday, and Monday there with high temperatures climbing into the mid-90s and those overnight lows staying in the 70s. So once again, Chief Meteorologist Mallory Schnell here. I'm going to leave you here actually with a look at the radar. So we have heavy downpours here. They are some slow movers, so they are dumping a lot of rainfall. around Crestwood over to LaGrange through Oldham County, Sellersburg. It does look like this activity in southern Indiana has greatly weakened, which is good news, I think, because of that outflow that rushed out of that storm. So we had a lot of lightning around Floyd's Knobs there for a bit. Georgetown, Floyd's Knobs, Starlight. And as it continued to push eastward, we're still getting heavy downpours right along I-65 there in southern Indiana. But it does look like that general storm is weakening. Meanwhile, this storm in Oldham County is strengthening a bit with that heavy rain and lightning. So if you live in Crestwood or just far eastern Jefferson County there, getting some of that heavy rainfall over to LaGrange here. Corydon, I'm a little bit worried once again about this general area for flooding. I believe we just have a flood advisory in place currently, but these are heavy rainfall producers and they're not budging much. So be watching that corridor for flooding concerns as we continue onward this evening, as well as the additional activity to our southwest and west. So take it in if you get the rain tonight. We do need it because we have another hot and dry stretch setting up here later on this week and into this weekend. But I'm going to hop off this stream. Of course, I'll be staying around the station tonight, so don't think anything will warrant any kind of cut-ins on TV, but I'll be posting on my Facebook page, meteorologist Mallory Schnell. You can follow me there for the latest updates, and we will regroup tonight on the night team. That's our newscast at 11 p.m. on WHAS 11. But in the meantime, it's stormy out there. We're tracking still some heavy rainfall, lightning, gusty winds as well, especially in southern Indiana. So if you're out on the roads, please be safe. Thank you for tuning in, and once again, we'll be back here on WHAS 11 News at 11 tonight. Have a great rest of your evening.